If you're buying a leasehold property or flat, and I know for many people there won't be an option that they have to do that, but there's a lot more restrictions in place. You can't really put a stamp, and the value doesn't really hold. The government in the future will probably be saying you might not be able to sell your house or rent your house out or property out without a certain level of energy performance.
Hi, I'm Iona Bain and welcome to A Little Bit Richer, brought to you by Legal and General. Now, with the endless advice and inspiration available online, home renovations have never been easier. But with the rise in so-called property poor and cost of labour, there can be, shall we say, unrealistic expectations on home makeovers. However, there are still plenty of ways you can make the most of your home on a budget. So here with lots of helpful advice is Paula Higgins from the Homeowners Alliance. This is an organisation that champions the interests of Britain's current and aspiring homeowners. They provide unbiased and practical advice whether you're buying, selling or owning your home. So without further ado, welcome Paula.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you here. So let's ask the big question. When buying a place, what's better? A doer-upper or somewhere that's already been renovated? You don't have to do that much to it.
Well, to be honest, I think for many listeners here, they might not have a choice because with house prices the way they are, and if they need a mortgage that's affordable, it might be a do-it-upper and a renovation project, which can be brilliant. It's a place you can put your stamp on your own property. You can probably maybe add value to the property, and it's exciting. But saying that, if you're time poor and you're not willing to put that investment in and to really get involved in the building work, whether you do it yourself or somebody else, then perhaps maybe something that you can kind of move in right away, that might be best for you.
So a doer-upper is a really great way to get a discount.
It can be a great way to get a discount, but also you've got to really go in with your eyes open because, you might think about a discount, but if you find out that the roof is failing, there's structural problems, there's damp, that can cost tens of thousands of pounds. So you really need to understand what you're getting yourself in for. But saying that, if it's just more cosmetic changes, it could be a really good way of improving, getting a good value out of your home.
You see, it's about trying to identify that potential in a property, isn't it? And it's something that I found really hard in the past because you look at the Artex ceilings or the avocado bathroom suite. These things can initially put you off. But I've realised you need to try and develop X-ray vision when you're looking at a property. And yet it's so hard. What are your tips for trying to spot those things that make a house have great potential?
Well, exactly that. I mean, you need to have vision, you need to understand the local market, and you need to understand the costs involved because, you might go in and actually changing a bathroom suite might not be that expensive, but rewiring, replumbing, that's where the expense is. So the one thing, if you're trying to find that gem there is location, location, location. That's what we always say. You cannot change that. So if it's a place that's up and coming, new businesses are moving in, lovely schools, good transport links, other people want to live there, then it probably is good. It will hold its value. Other things that you can think about is that, buying a cheap property on an expensive street is a good way because actually it's one that maybe hasn't been done up, but the other ones have. Other people want to live on that street. Maybe, once you get that sort of, get over that hurdle and renovate, you might do very good value out of that. And the other thing we'd say is to buy your own front door. When you have your own home, you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. If you're buying a leasehold property or flat, and I know for many people there won't be an option that they have to do that, but there's a lot more restrictions in place. You can't really put a stamp, and the value doesn't really hold. There's not really much places where you can add value to the leasehold property.
So it's really worth being aware of those differences between leasehold and freehold properties because that will affect what you can do with it.
Most definitely. So even though you might, you own your flat as opposed to renting your flat, you will still have to ask permission from your freeholder, from your other neighbours to do work. And also you've got things like service charges.
So what are the best home renovation ideas for homeowners on a budget? What are the things that will actually add value to a property and what are the things that are a bit more debatable?
So there's always easy things you can do, like a lick of paint, changing light fixtures, whatever can really change the sort of the feel of the home. So that's, a bit of a no-brainer. But if you're looking at bigger projects, I would think things like an open plan kitchen. If you talk to estate agents, they can add tens of thousands. And it's actually not that expensive to maybe tear down an internal wall.
Wow, tens of thousands of pounds just for tearing down a wall.
So we we did research a few years ago, and it can cost between £4,000 or £5,000. This is all very ballpark figures. You definitely need to look into it yourself,
Yep.
and you definitely need to get it done properly because you don't want to be tearing down a structural wall.
True.
But it can really, really add value because think about it: if you're building, developing that home, that for the next person who just wants to move in, they'll pay for that. Other things is getting an ensuite or downstairs loo is another one that actually doesn't cost a huge amount, but it can really add value when you come to sell. Also, things that you've got space, a garden room. People are working from home now, so people really find that as an attractive thing when you might come to sell. So really what this thing to add value is it's the potential to grow. So
Yes.
think of your future self. And even though if you think that the property you're buying is maybe too big for you, but think about whether you can you sublet a room, get a lodger in if you need it? Can you go into the loft? Is it brilliant? Actually, quite reasonably priced. Digging out basements is definitely don't go there.
Oh, really? So it's better to go up rather than down?
Yeah, definitely. Way much more affordable.
Yeah.
And also things like, doing a side return or an extension. There's lots of options there.
And what about things like energy efficiency? That's not necessarily the kind of thing that gives the property the wow factor, but could that be a good investment over time?
It is very much so. So you should be looking when you're buying a property or when you're looking at properties, there's the energy performance certificates.
Right.
So will give you not only just how much, an indication of how much you might be paying in bills, but also an indication of what you could do to improve the energy efficiency of your property.
And they're graded by letters, aren't they?
They are. And it's actually becoming more and more important because the government in the future will probably be saying you might not be able to sell your house or rent your house out or property out without a certain level of energy performance. So you would think that future buyers might be looking at this. So there are some great things you can do to improve the energy efficiency of your home, but take a look at the suite of options. So there can be some things like better lighting, changing the boiler, radiator controls, but something like double glazed windows, which we all love, they can be incredibly expensive. The payback is not brilliant, and actually the future buyer might not really say, oh, I'm going to pay that extra because of the double glaze. So let them find out what the price is. But saying that, they are beautiful and it's a great investment. If that makes you happy, your home is where your happy place, and then by all means go for it.
But if a property already comes with double glazed window, that's a big tick.
That it's an absolute big tick. And that's probably also something that I don't think others will probably value as much. But do take a look at the energy performance certificates because, the cost of heating and energy at the moment is so high that it is definitely worthwhile. So another thing is you can even have two properties on the same terrace street, but if somebody's invested in the insulation, can really make it not even just cheaper to run, but actually really, a nice place to live and you're not freezing in the winter or super hot in the summer.
That's why you want to get up in the loft as well, because if you keep that well insulated, that will help the whole house stay warm as well, I imagine.
That's right.
Yeah. And in terms of the energy performance certificates, what's considered a good EPC rating then?
It can vary. So, I think that the government is trying to get to C, but to be honest, it depends on the local housing stock. So you can easily check out the EPC ratings of the property you're in, or the property you're looking to buy, and the neighbour's property. Typical terraced houses, you probably look at C, D, E. A, Bs are pretty much unattainable. Those will be new build homes.
Right, that's good to know.
But don't go for F or G.
Okay, F or G, try to steer clear.
Yes.
So there'll be people listening to this who aren't in a position to buy yet, and maybe they don't want to buy, they want to keep renting, but their options are more limited, aren't they, in terms of how they can make their space feel a little bit more like a home. Have you got any tips for them?
Yes, there's still lots of things you can do. Painting is actually quite inexpensive. Of course, ask your landlord, but also there's things like peelable wallpapers, so you can put the wallpaper up and then take it down when you leave. Other things you can do is that, invest in furniture and storage, pieces that make you happy that you'll bring with you. Lighting is another easy way. Make a big difference to have maybe softer lighting, and that is something that you can then take with you as well. And we'd also say something we called curb appeal. So the garden, the front step, it can make you feel happy when you're coming into your home. Having plants around your home, again, very cheap. very easy to take care of, and it sort of puts your stamp on it.
That's such a good shout. Okay, soft furnishings and plants. That's what you can do to make your rental home feel a little bit more cozy and like it's yours.
Something that I think renters don't do so much is that there's such a wealth of places you can go locally. Join your local Facebook groups, your WhatsApp groups, your
Yeah.
next door, because you might have somebody down the street who's moving out, has a lot of furniture they need to give away, and you'll be able to pick up.
That's a great tip if you're looking to buy a home as well,
Yeah.
because you're on a budget and you need to get furniture however you can.
Yes, and you can mix old with new. You don't need all the designer. There's some brilliant affordable brands out there.
Totally.
So it's buy well. Maybe buy better to buy maybe one piece that makes you really happy that you'll keep forever.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And hooray for the return of vintage interiors as well, because it means that you can borrow things from your mum and dad, as I sometimes do, or go to a charity shop or go to a secondhand store and get stuff on a budget. If you have got your place and you're wanting to put your stamp on it, you'll probably have so many things that you want to do, and yet you're on a budget. So how do you prioritize?
So the first thing we'd say is don't rush into anything, so go in, live in the space, see where the light comes from, see the rooms that you're using. You might want to think about doing one room at a time. It might be a way to sort of budget, and you sort of learn from what you like and what you don't like. But you also need to make sure you've got to stick to a plan and a budget, because you might end up with half-finished rooms. And one thing we'd say is also that you might have to look at the fundamentals. So what you don't want to do is to redo a room and then find out you've got to rewire and you've got to tear it all out again. And that's a waste of money, really.
So you got to start with the basics, how the house is wired, whether there's any structural issues. Is there something that you can do to really uncover those problems in advance?
So what we would suggest is that when you're looking to buy the property, that you've done a building survey. If you haven't, you could probably do one afterwards. And it's a really good manual. And sometimes if you get the right building survey, it'll even give you an estimate of cost. So you can kind of plan out what you're going to do in the future. And then other things you can do, like if, as we said before, kitchens are a really good way. We know it adds value. But don't go for the designer, affordable brands. Really easy to do. Sometimes you can just repaint cabinets, add a bit more storage, redo the taps. Some easy quick wins there, and you can really sort of make a stamp and add a value to your home.
Yeah, when I moved into my place, I kept the frame of the cupboards in my kitchens, but I just replaced the doors and I replaced the kitchen top, and it made it look like a new kitchen without having to rip it all out and start all over again.
And another tip is that also what a lot of people do, they can get IKEA cabinets. So IKEA cabinets are quite cheap, and get your own doors on there. Yeah. But the more bespoke a kitchen it is, the more likely the next person might not like it. So
that's a very good point. So yeah, spend a bit of money on the kitchen, but maybe don't be too design led with it. Try to be, a bit realistic about what future people would want.
Yes, exactly. And, you might want sort of maybe plainer colors, but then go wild with the wallpaper, go wild with the black backsplash, something like that, put your own mark on it, but something that somebody else can think, okay, I can redo it or do something different.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And also, if you're moving into a place, is there a case for roughing it for a while? If you haven't moved all your furniture in there, so long as you've got a running tap, a kettle to make some tea, and you can keep the place warm, is there something to be said for just setting up a camp bed in the house and then doing the works as you go?
Yes, no, I do think that. And also the nice thing about that, if you are planning to do a whole house renovation, is that, to be able to live in the house while the builders are there, it can be a bit of a pain. You might have a lot of takeaway pizzas.
Yeah.
But it's actually quite good to keep an eye on the builders, and you save money than having to camp somewhere else. Okay. So we always suggest that if you can, rough it a bit.
Rough it, put up with the takeaway pizzas. It's worth it in the long run. So are there some common pitfalls of home renovations that we need to watch out for?
Well, the big thing is budgeting. So it's expensive. Construction costs are very high. And then the one thing to make clear to people is that the fact that tradesmen or builders, they're not regulated. So find the right tradesman to do the job. We've got great sort of platforms out there on websites to find a builder, but they're not regulated. So, a good builder is one that you've got good reviews, you've got local recommendations, and actually you might have to wait 6 months to get them around to you, and that's a good sign. So it's unfortunately, anyone can be a builder, and if you don't know what you're doing, they can take advantage of you.
It's really surprising to learn that builders not regulated in that way when they could potentially, do a lot of things to your home and take a lot of value off the home and there wouldn't really be that much comeback.
Yes, and it's really, really hard to get redress for that.
Yeah.
So what we'd always say is that, if you do find a builder that you want to use or a tradesman, is make sure you have a contract in place. Make sure you don't hand over all the money in cash because that won't protect you. Really get involved in the building work. So don't just rely on, oh, I think this will be fine. You really want to become an expert on that. And the thing is that will really help you for the future, for the next, because you'll always have to do some sort of project in the future. So you've got to get yourself involved in it.
And do you have to get used to potentially budgets overrunning as well?
Of course, if you get 3 quotes, not going for the cheapest quote, making sure you get everything done in writing. So it's sometimes it's surprising that you might say, well, it'll cost X amount to do a bathroom, but they say, oh, well, by the way, but you have to pay for all the grouting and of course, you've got to pay for the tiles. You can cut costs, but if you can source some of the tiles, the furniture, the sanitary ware, that could be brilliant and be a brilliant way to save money.
And it may be that you can put up the tiles yourself. I mean, there is always YouTube, so keep an eye on the builder, make sure they're doing what you want them to do and possibly build in a bit of a buffer in terms of your budget as well.
Yes, we always say 10%.
Okay.
And this 10% is always for stuff that is not expected, especially if it's an old house.
Quickly learn what is doable when you move into a place and all these dreams that you have in your
Yeah,
head.
but what you really don't want to do is to put yourself in a position where you're vulnerable to a builder that just walks away, takes your money, or holds you to ransom, pulls out your kitchen, says, I want more money before, I carry on. And unfortunately, this stuff does happen.
That's the worst.
My philosophy's always been sort of almost do it first yourself.
Yeah.
And then, even if you make a mess of it, then you understand when you get somebody professional in to do it, you can then make sure they do a professional job.
Those issues around making sure that you're getting good word of mouth, etc., they don't just apply to builders, do they?
Not at all, really. So, for smaller jobs, like if you need a handyman or a decorator, you can go to these, find a builder platforms, but also local, go local. The decorators locally, they're relying on their local reputation. But I would still suggest that you still try to get stuff in writing or really hone down exactly what they're going to do. Are they going to do 1 coat of paint? Are they going to be plastering? So you really want to understand. So you're both on the same page and you're not disappointed if they're not doing as much as you thought they would do.
So this is going to be really tough, Paula, because you've just given me so many great hacks here. But if we had to whittle this down, what would be your 3 top tips for doing up your home on a budget?
So I would say get your sequencing right. You do not want to do something and then have to pull it out again. So, look at the fundamentals, look at the wiring, the plumbing. You need to get that stuff done right. Make a plan, cost it, and stick to it. So be patient. As we said that the best tradesmen are booked out for months in advance. So don't feel you need to get done by Christmas because then you'd be vulnerable to get things done.
Fantastic, Paula. You've given me so much inspiration there when it comes to doing up my next place. I'm going to take all those hacks with me. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Paula, that's been so helpful and inspiring. I can't wait to do a bit of DIY after that conversation. Next time, I'll be joined by Joe Ryle from the 4-Day Week Foundation to talk all about flexible work and getting that crucial work-life balance. I'd love it if you could follow the podcast, leave us a review, and help others get a little bit richer too. You can keep up with the show on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram @Legal and General. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, see you soon.